Hello everybody, this is Albert with Green Tea House. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to talk about should you warm your teapot or teacups prior to usage. Now before we begin, I highly appreciate and recommend that you check out our back catalog of episodes, and I'll make sure to put some episodes that are relevant to this topic up here. And one of the ones I'm going to put is how the East and the West serve their tea differently. So should you warm your kettle or teacups prior to use? Well, you don't have to, and this is one of those things that you'll see the East and the West do it differently. So I'm going to look to the East because the East, in particular China, is where we've gotten tea since the Bronze Age. And so if you look at their gong fu style of serving tea, which is the standard in China, the answer is yes. So what they'll do, and I'll show you a video here, and we have an episode that we talked about, should you rinse your tea leaves before usage. So you can see here how I rinse my tea leaves. So the answer to that is I like to do it. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but I like to waken the tea leaves with room temperature water, just a quick rinse to wake them up. But the Chinese will put hot water. So here you can see my small gong fu. This is my travel set, and I get boiling water and I do pour it over. That's a xiqing, the Chinese kettle, but if I'm using a gawan, I'll pour it over the gawan, I'll pour it over the little cups. I just pour it over everything. Why do you do that? Well, it's a pragmatic thing for a couple reasons. One, if you're putting boiling water or very hot water, because we know green tea, for example, oolongs, light oolongs, and yellow tea shouldn't be at full boil, but you're putting very hot water on room temperature cups, mugs, or whatever, you might not think about this, but it can lead to cracks and increase cracks in your teaware. Maybe you dropped, whatever it is, because again, really hot water going into something that's at room temperature. If you've ever done this, and I remember doing this in college, I had baked some peanut butter cups in the oven that were really, really, really hot. And for some reason, I had them on a glass something, and I poured room temperature water on something that had just come out of the oven. Broke. So that kind of gives you an idea. But the main reason that people will put hot water on their teaware in China is the simple fact that it's going to keep the tea hotter. So if you preheat, so to speak, and I'm not saying put them in an oven or put them in a microwave, just pour hot water over it, it's going to warm those vessels, and therefore after you pour the water out of these things, they're already going to be warm. So when you're pouring the hot water into them, it's going to retain the temperature better. So when you don't do this and you just have a cold mug or a cold teapot or whatever you're using, a yixing, whatever it is, it's going to reduce the temperature of that tea by a significant amount simply because it's at room temperature. So the better thing to do is essentially preheat your teaware and pour just really quickly. It doesn't have to be a lot, just whatever you're going to use, whether it be a mug. If you're going straight into a mug, you're using a ball infuser, an infuser, cup infuser, and you're using a mug. If you're doing something like I like to do, I tend to use a kiyusu every day for whatever drink I'm drinking aside from my pu'er. With yiqings, the Chinese kettles, since they're porcelain and they're porous, they absorb the flavor of whatever you're using. So I only use that for my pu'ers, which I drink a pu'er every day. So that one is just reserved for pu'ers, for my dark tea. But you just pour it over whatever you're going to use. Your tea is therefore more likely to stay warm than if you just put it into a cold mug. So I say let's defer to the founders, kind of like in soccer, we defer to England since they invented soccer. Let's defer to the Chinese and see what they do. And remember, in the gong fu as well, in China, they use a lot more tea leaves, and they use a shorter infusion time, sometimes 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and they'll do multiple steeps, like 7 steeps into their little cups, and they savor the cups. And we talked about in that episode on really appreciating tea. One of the ways you can do it is by using a tea set, like a gong fu set, or if you're more into the Japanese style, because you hear the trickling of the water over the tray. You look at the leaves, you smell the leaves, you use 2 hands, you sip the small cups with people, and that's a great way to kind of slow down your life. So the answer to this question is yes, I would warm your teaware ahead of time, if for the simple reason it's going to keep your tea warmer when you drink it. And who wants to drink room temperature tea? Guys, post in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and God bless.